Welcome to Ian Cinema, your destination for endless entertainment and unforgettable movie moments. Discover exciting films, inspiring stories, and cinematic journeys across every genre. Whether you love action, drama, thrillers, or timeless favorites, there's always something waiting for you here. Sit back, enjoy the experience, and let Ian Cinema bring the magic of movies to your screen. King Kong, 2005. Is an epic adventure monster film directed, produced, and co-written by Peter Jackson. The screenplay was written by Peter Jackson, Aaron Walsh, and Philippa Boyens, based on the original 1933 King Kong by Marion C. Cooper and Edgar Wallace. The film stars Naomi Watts, Jack Black, and Adrien Brody. Serving as the 9th installment in the King Kong franchise, the film is the second remake of the 1933 classic, following the 1976 adaptation, set during the Great Depression in 1932. The story follows an ambitious filmmaker who convinces his cast and crew to travel to the mysterious Skull Island in search of the perfect location for his next movie. Once they arrive, they discover a dangerous world filled with prehistoric creatures and giant beasts, including the legendary giant ape, King Kong. After capturing Kong, they transport him to New York City, where his presence leads to unforgettable and tragic events. Development of the project began in 1995, when Universal Pictures approached Peter Jackson about directing a remake of the original film. However, the project was cancelled in 1997 because several giant monster films were already in development, and Jackson shifted his focus to directing the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Following the enormous commercial and critical success of those films, Universal returned to Jackson in 2003 to revive the project, and he ultimately agreed to direct it. Filming took place in New Zealand between September 2004 and March 2005. At the time of its release, King Kong was the most expensive film ever produced, with its budget increasing from an initial $150 million to a record-breaking $207 million. The film premiered in New York City on December 5, 2005, before its theatrical release in New Zealand on December 13 and in the United States on December 14, 2005. It received widespread critical acclaim and appeared on many critics' lists of the best films of 2005. Reviewers praised its groundbreaking visual effects, strong performances, emotional storytelling, spectacular action sequences, and respectful tribute to the 1933 original. Although some critics felt the 3-hour runtime was longer than necessary, the film was a major commercial success. King Kong earned more than $556.9 million worldwide, making it one of Universal Pictures' highest-grossing films at the time and the 5th highest-grossing film of 2005. It also generated over $100 million in DVD sales following its home video release. At the 78th Academy Awards in March 2006, the film won 3 Oscars for Best Visual Effects, Best Sound Editing, and Best Sound Mixing. A video game adaptation was released alongside the film and was also both a commercial and critical success. Plot summary: in 1932, during the height of the Great Depression, struggling actress Ann Darrow returns to her theater after a performance only to discover that it has closed. Her friend and fellow performer, Manny, encourages her to audition for a stage production, but she soon learns that the role has already been filled. With few opportunities left and no money to survive, Ann's future appears uncertain. Meanwhile, ambitious filmmaker Carl Denham is under pressure from his financial backers, who have lost confidence in his latest project. Determined not to let his dream die, Denham reveals a mysterious map leading to the uncharted Skull Island, where he hopes to shoot an extraordinary adventure film. The studio executives refuse to fund the risky expedition and decide to shut down the production. Unwilling to watch his life's work disappear, Denham secretly gathers his crew, recruits a cast at the last minute, and makes immediate preparations to sail for the mysterious Skull Island, setting the stage for one of cinema's greatest adventures. Patterson informs Denham that their lead actress has dropped out of the film. Determined to find a replacement, Denham heads into the city. While looking at a movie poster outside the burlesque theater, he notices Ann Darrow's reflection in a glass door. He follows her and catches her trying to steal an apple, instead of letting her get arrested. Denham pays for the fruit and invites her to dinner, where he offers her the lead role in his film. Although Ann is interested, she initially declines. However, after learning that Jack Driscoll is writing the screenplay, she changes her mind and agrees to join the expedition. As they prepare to leave, someone warns Denham that the police are on their way to arrest him. He convinces Captain Inglehorn to get the ship ready for departure and rushes to persuade Driscoll to come aboard, handing him the unfinished script. Driscoll reluctantly agrees, and the ship sails out of the harbor just as the police arrive. As the voyage continues, Driscoll and Ann grow closer during filming. The crew eventually discovers that they are not sailing to Singapore, as Denham had claimed, but instead toward the mysterious Skull Island. Hayes and Lumpy warn Jimmy about the dangers of the island, sharing stories from a sailor who survived an expedition there years earlier. That night, Driscoll reads Ann the stage play he has been writing, and the two begin to fall in love. Soon afterward, Captain Inglehorn receives a telegram ordering him to turn the ship around and return Denham to the authorities. Denham desperately tries to convince him otherwise, but the captain refuses. Before they can change course, however, thick fog surrounds the ship, causing it to crash into hidden rocks. Denham spots the enormous wall surrounding Skull Island and realizes they have finally reached their destination. The following day, Denham leads the crew ashore, where they discover an abandoned city inhabited by a mysterious native civilization living among ancient ruins. The first encounter quickly turns violent, and 2 crew members are killed before Captain Inglehorn and the sailors arrive with weapons to rescue the others. After securing Ann safely aboard the ship, Inglehorn orders the crew to lighten the vessel by throwing unnecessary cargo overboard. Meanwhile, Jack regains consciousness after being knocked out on the island. He finds the necklace belonging to the man who attacked him and rushes to locate Ann, only to discover 2 dead soldiers and signs that she has been kidnapped. He informs the captain, who immediately organizes a rescue mission. The natives drag Ann to a massive sacrificial altar beyond the island's enormous wall. By the time the rescue party arrives, the natives have already lowered her over the wall while chanting and beating drums. Moments later, Kong appears, takes Ann into the jungle, and disappears into the wilderness. The rescue team follows the trail of destruction left behind by Kong. Deep within the jungle, they stop briefly in a narrow valley, only to be attacked by a herd of gigantic brontosaurus. Although many survive the stampede, several men are trampled or eaten before the survivors escape by climbing to higher ground. Elsewhere, Ann repeatedly tries to escape from Kong. Each time, he quickly catches her. At first, Kong becomes fascinated by her attempts to entertain him with a vaudeville routine. When she stops performing, he grows confused and frustrated but ultimately leaves her alone for a while. The sailors eventually reach a deep chasm crossed by a giant log. As they begin crossing, Kong suddenly appears, kills one of the men, and violently shakes the log, sending many sailors plunging into the abyss below. Hearing the gunfire, Ann runs toward the commotion but encounters a group of hungry dinosaurs. She is chased through the jungle until Kong arrives and rescues her. He defeats 2 of the predators before a third joins the battle. Kong crushes the youngest dinosaur with a massive rock, then hurls the others over a cliff. Captain Inglehorn and his remaining men narrowly survive the chaos. After an intense battle, Kong finally kills the last attacking dinosaur. During the fight, Ann falls into a muddy pit, Watching Kong risk everything to protect her changes the way she sees him. Her fear gradually fades, replaced by trust and compassion. Meanwhile, Jack awakens at the bottom of the ravine after the log attack. As he searches for survivors, enormous insects emerge from the darkness and attack the stranded sailors. Many of the crew are killed, including Lumpy, who is devoured while searching for Choi's body. Captain Englehorn and Bruce Baxter eventually return with reinforcements and rescue the remaining survivors while Denham begins planning to capture Kong instead of killing him. Jack continues searching for Anna and eventually reaches Kong's mountain lair under the cover of darkness. He finds Anna asleep beside the giant ape. When she wakes and sees Jack, they prepare to escape. Kong suddenly awakens and furiously attacks Jack, but a swarm of giant bats distracts him long enough for the pair to flee. As Jack and Ann reach the massive gate, they discover that the drawbridge has already been raised, leaving them trapped. Kong quickly catches up, but Preston lowers the drawbridge despite Denham's orders. Jack and Ann escape safely to the other side while Kong pounds furiously against the enormous gates. Captain Englehorn then orders his men to attack Kong as Denham prepares to carry out his plan to capture the giant ape alive. Kong slowly drags Jack onto the grappling hooks as the crew smashes a bottle of knockout gas beneath him. Anna desperately protests the attack, and Carl Denham orders Jack to take her away. However, the moment Kong sees Anna being pulled from him, he tears free from the nets and gives chase. He reaches the rocky coastline just as the crew begins escaping. Kong crushes one of the men, but Jimmy fires at him, allowing another crew member to drive a harpoon into Kong's leg. Carl then orders another bottle of knockout gas to be thrown at Kong. The gas strikes him in the face, rendering him unconscious. The crew transports the giant ape back to New York, where he is advertised as Kong, the eighth wonder of the world. After returning to New York, Jack and Anna are no longer under contract with Denham. Nevertheless, Denham puts Kong on display in a Broadway theater. Jack searches for Anna at the theater, only to discover that another actress has been hired to portray her during the performance. Denham's decision to allow photographers to crowd around Kong and repeatedly flash their cameras enrages the giant ape. When Kong realizes the woman on stage is not the real Anna, he snaps his chains and escapes from the theater. Kong rampages through the streets of New York in search of Anna. At the same time, Anna notices military forces moving through the city and runs off to find Kong. When Kong spots Jack riding in a taxi, he mistakes him for taking Anna away and chases the vehicle through the streets. He eventually smashes the taxi before recognizing Anna. The two share a peaceful reunion in Central Park, enjoying a brief moment together before the military attacks once again. Forced to flee, Kong leaps across rooftops and eventually climbs the Empire State Building. At the top, Anna and Kong quietly admire the sunrise together before military aircraft arrive. Kong battles the attacking planes while protecting Anna. At one point, he saves her life by catching her after part of the structure collapses beneath her. He carefully places her inside the observation deck, and she climbs back to him. The two share one final emotional moment before Kong is struck by a barrage of bullets. He gently touches Anna's face one last time before finally losing his strength and falling from the top of the Empire State Building. As people gather round Kong's lifeless body, photographers swarm the scene while one bystander declares that the airplanes killed him. Carl Denham pushes through the crowd and quietly responds with the unforgettable words, "It wasn't the airplanes, it was Beauty killed the beast." Earlier on Skull Island, the rescue party cautiously ventures deeper into the jungle. Spooked by strange sounds, they fire wildly into the darkness until they are ordered to stop. Suddenly, flares illuminate the area as frightened creatures burst from the bushes. Wounded and terrified, the survivors barely manage to escape. After surviving the Brontosaurus stampede, Bruce Baxter and several soldiers return to the native village, while the remaining rescue team ties logs together to build makeshift rafts and paddles across a dangerous swamp. Halfway through the crossing, they are attacked by enormous aquatic predators. One creature suddenly erupts from beneath the water, destroying the first raft and throwing several soldiers into the swamp. The survivors desperately swim for shore while Denham shoots at the monster, but many soldiers are dragged underwater and devoured before the rest can escape. Continuing their journey through the jungle, Jack pauses to listen to the eerie silence surrounding them. Nervous, Lumpy fires toward an unseen sound, believing something dangerous is approaching. Jack, Anna, and the others rush forward and discover that the noise was caused by a harmless animal trapped in the undergrowth. After freeing it, the group continues deeper into the jungle. Elsewhere, Jimmy retrieves a fallen canteen, cleans it off, and carries it with him as the team presses onward. After Kong escapes from the theater, he crashes through buildings and races across New York City toward the waterfront. Along the way, he destroys vehicles and smashes through streets crowded with frightened civilians. During his pursuit of Jack's taxi, Kong hurls cars aside as he charges through the city. Meanwhile, inside military trucks, commanding officers deliver inspiring speeches to their soldiers, urging them to locate and kill Kong. Moments later, their convoy collides with the giant ape. Several vehicles flip over while Kong barely notices the impact as he continues searching for Anna. The story begins during the Great Depression, where struggling actress Ann Darrow is desperate to find work. After attempting to steal an apple from a fruit stand, she first meets playwright Jack Driscoll. The two gradually fall in love during their extraordinary adventure. Carl Denham, an ambitious and obsessive filmmaker, acquires a mysterious map leading to Skull Island despite mounting financial problems. As production continues, Denham becomes increasingly consumed by his desire to capture the greatest film ever made, ignoring the safety of everyone around him. Jack Driscoll, the film's screenwriter, reluctantly joins the voyage after delivering a rewritten script to Denham's ship moments before it departs. Throughout the expedition, Jack develops a deep bond with Ann and is the only member of the crew who truly believes Kong should be left alone rather than captured. The film features Thomas Kretschmann as Captain Engelhorn, the strict German captain of the venture. Although he initially dislikes Carl Denham because of his reckless and ambitious nature, he is ultimately an honest and dependable leader. Jamie Bell plays Jimmy, a young teenager who was found abandoned and later taken in by the crew of the venture. Evan Parke portrays Ben Hayes, the ship's first mate and Jimmy's mentor. A veteran of World War I, Hayes leads the rescue mission to save the crew and uses the experience he gained during the war to guide his decisions. Lumpy, the ship's cook and Hayes' closest friend, is played by Andy Serkis, who also performed the motion capture role of Kong. The cast also includes Kyle Chandler as actor Bruce Baxter and Craig Hall as Mike, the soundman. Director Frank Darabont makes a brief cameo as a gangster on one of the airplanes during the finale. Peter Jackson and his longtime collaborator Fran Walsh also appear in small cameo roles as New Yorkers. Composer Howard Shore appears as the conductor of the New York Theatre Orchestra before Kong's stage performance. For the lead roles, Naomi Watts and Jack Black were Peter Jackson's first choices from the very beginning, and no other actors were seriously considered. To prepare for the role of Ann Darrow, Watts met with Fay Wray, the original Ann Darrow from the 1933 classic. Jackson had hoped Wray would make a cameo appearance and deliver the film's final line of dialogue. Sadly, she passed away during pre-production at the age of 96 before filming could begin. Jack Black was cast as Carl Denham largely because of his performance in the 2000 film High Fidelity, which inspired Jackson's vision of the character. Denham's personality was also influenced by legendary showman P.T. Barnum and filmmaker Orson Welles. Black later recalled that he did not study Welles frame by frame but instead focused on capturing his powerful style of speech and larger-than-life personality. The Skull Island natives were portrayed by actors of Asian, African, Madagascar, and Polynesian backgrounds. Heavy makeup was used to give them a consistent appearance and distinctive skin pigmentation. Peter Jackson had dreamed of remaking King Kong since childhood. At just 9 years old, he first watched the original 1933 film on television and was amazed by the scene in which Kong falls from the Empire State Building. By the age of 12, He had already begun recreating the movie using his parents' Super 8 camera and a homemade Kong model built from wire and rubber. Although the project was never completed, King Kong became his favorite film and inspired his lifelong ambition to become a filmmaker. As a teenager, Jackson collected books, magazine articles, and memorabilia related to the making of King Kong. He even paid tribute to the original film by including Skull Island as the source of a mysterious plague in his 1992 movie Braindead. While working on The Frighteners in the mid-1990s, Universal Pictures was impressed by Jackson's storyboards and early visual effects work. The studio initially offered him the chance to direct a remake of Creature from the Black Lagoon, but he declined. Knowing about his lifelong passion for King Kong, Universal instead offered him the opportunity to remake the 1933 classic. Because the King Kong character had entered the public domain, the studio did not face major legal obstacles in developing a new adaptation. Although Jackson first turned down the offer, he soon realized someone else might direct the project if he refused. Determined to bring his own vision to the screen, he eventually accepted Universal's proposal. At the same time, Jackson was negotiating with Miramax to acquire the film rights to The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, while 20th Century Fox was trying to hire him to direct its planned remake of Planet of the Apes. Jackson declined Planet of the Apes, choosing instead to focus on King Kong. Special effects supervisor Stan Winston was reportedly frustrated by the delays surrounding The Lord of the Rings. To move the project forward, Jackson proposed a partnership between Universal and Miramax in which both studios would equally finance King Kong through his production company, Wingnut Films. Universal would handle distribution in the United States, while Miramax would manage international territories. Jackson also negotiated for final cut approval, a percentage of the film's profits, and complete creative control over the visual effects, which would be produced in New Zealand by Weta Workshop and Weta Digital. The agreement was finalized in April 1996, and Jackson began writing the screenplay with Fran Walsh. In the earliest version of the script, Ann Darrow was the daughter of famous English archaeologist Lord Darrow. While exploring ancient Asian ruins, she and her father would discover a hidden statue of Kong along with a map leading to Skull Island. Their discovery revealed that the island's inhabitants were the last surviving members of an ancient cult that had once flourished on the Asian mainland. Carl Denham's character was originally written as a former World War I fighter pilot still struggling with the death of his best friend during the war. Cameron Minard was the only supporting character from the original screenplay to remain in the final film. The battle between Kong and the three V-Rex dinosaurs also underwent major changes during script revisions. In one early draft, Anne was trapped inside the jaw of a V-Rex during the fight. Kong rescued her, but she later developed a serious fever before eventually recovering. Universal officially approved the screenplay, with Robert Zemeckis serving as executive producer during the early stages of development. Pre-production began with plans to start filming in 1997 for a planned summer 1998 release. Weta Workshop, under the supervision of Richard Taylor and Christian Rivers, started developing early visual effects, including the complex CGI recreation of 1933 New York City. As Jackson and his team completed the second draft of the screenplay, production designers also began creating concept art and scouting filming locations across New Zealand. In 1996, Jackson traveled to Mexico to visit the production of James Cameron's upcoming film Titanic, studying its large-scale filmmaking techniques as preparation for bringing his own ambitious vision of King Kong to life. The production of Titanic, 1997, in Mexico delayed the development of King Kong. During this period, director Peter Jackson discussed the role of Ann Darrow with actress Kate Winslet, whom he had previously worked with on Heavenly Creatures, 1994. Several actors were reportedly considered for the role of Jack Driscoll, including Minnie Driver, while other names linked to the project included Nicolas Cage, George Clooney, and Robert De Niro. Universal Pictures also considered actors such as Bill Paxton, Sam Neill, Jeff Bridges, Bruce Willis, and Kevin Costner for the part. However, development on King Kong was halted in January 1997 when Universal became concerned about the upcoming release of Godzilla, 1998, as well as other giant monster films such as Mighty Joe Young, 1998, and Planet of the Apes, 2001. Universal officially cancelled King Kong in February 1997, even though Weta Workshop and Digital had already completed nearly 6 months of pre-production work. Following the cancellation, Peter Jackson shifted his focus to directing the Lord of the Rings film trilogy. After the enormous critical and commercial success of The Fellowship of the Ring, 2001, and The Two Towers, 2002, Universal approached Jackson again in early 2003, while he was finishing The Return of the King, to see if he was still interested in reviving King Kong. In March 2003, Universal set a December 2005 release date, and Jackson reunited with his Lord of the Rings co-writers, Fran Walsh and Philippa Boyens, to rewrite the original 1996 script. Jackson also offered New Line Cinema the opportunity to co-finance the film with Universal, but the studio declined. Universal and Jackson initially planned a budget of $150 million, although it eventually increased to $175 million. Jackson negotiated a deal that gave him a $20 million salary along with 20% of the film's box office gross in exchange for directing, producing, and co-writing the film. He shared this payment with Fran Walsh, whose compensation also covered her producing credit. The agreement also stated that if the budget exceeded $175 million, Jackson himself would cover the additional costs. Immediately after completing The Return of the King, Weta Workshop and Weta Digital resumed pre-production. Jackson brought back many of his Lord of the Rings collaborators, including cinematographer Andrew Lesnie, production designer Grant Major, editor Jamie Selkirk, costume designer Angela Dixon, visual effects supervisor Joe Lettery, and art director Simon Wright. Jackson, Walsh, and Boyens began writing a completely new screenplay in late October 2003. Jackson later admitted that he was highly dissatisfied with the original 1996 script, describing it as little more than an early draft with ideas that had never been fully developed. Rather than following the abandoned script, the writers based their new screenplay primarily on the classic 1933 King Kong. They also restored several famous scenes that had been written for the original film but were never included in its theatrical release. One of the most notable was the spider pit sequence, in which sailors fall into a ravine and are attacked by giant spiders, insects, and other prehistoric creatures. Although the scene had been removed from the 1933 film, it remained legendary among King Kong fans through production stills and historical accounts. Jackson recreated and expanded this sequence for his version. The writers also drew inspiration from the 1932 novelization of King Kong, incorporating characters such as Lumpy and Jimmy to strengthen the emotional connection between Ann Darrow and Kong. To better understand guerrilla behavior, Jackson studied extensive wildlife footage and documentaries. Andy Serkis also observed gorillas to help develop Kong's personality and movements. And Darrow's character was partly inspired by actress Fay Wray, while Carl Denham's characterization was influenced by filmmaker Orson Welles. The screenplay was completed in February 2004. Principal photography began on September 6, 2004. At Camperdown Studios in Miramar, New Zealand. Massive sets were constructed for Skull Island, including the native village and the giant wall, while elaborate recreations of 1930s New York City were built on large backlots. Most scenes aboard the SS Venture were filmed on a full-scale ship set, with the surrounding ocean digitally added during post-production using blue screen technology. The Broadway theater scenes, including Kong's dramatic escape, were filmed at Wellington's Opera House and the St. James Theatre. Additional filming took place at Stone Street Studios, where a new soundstage was especially built for the production. As filming progressed, The budget rose from $175 million to approximately $207 million due to the growing number of visual effects shots and Jackson's decision to extend the film by nearly 30 minutes. Jackson personally covered much of the additional $32 million cost under the terms of his agreement with Universal. Filming wrapped in March 2005, with a final production budget of approximately $207 million. King Kong became the most expensive film ever made at that time. Universal approved the increased budget only after studio executives viewed an unfinished version of the film and were impressed by what they saw. Marketing and promotional costs added an estimated $16 million to the overall expense. The film's running time also expanded considerably. Originally planned at around 135 minutes, it eventually exceeded 3 hours. Universal executives traveled to New Zealand to review rough cuts of the film and discuss concerns, including Jackson's last-minute decision to replace composer Howard Shore with James Newton Howard just weeks before the film's release. The visual effects represented a major technological achievement, particularly in the field of motion capture. Jackson wanted Kong to behave like a real gorilla rather than a human in a gorilla's body, so the visual effects team carefully studied real gorillas to capture their movements accurately. Andy Serkis was cast as Kong in April 2003. To prepare for the role, he spent time observing gorillas at the London Zoo before traveling to Rwanda to study mountain gorillas in their natural habitat. His detailed observations helped shape Kong's realistic movements, behavior, and personality. Weta Digital also developed advanced facial performance capture technology, allowing Serkis's subtle facial expressions to be translated onto Kong's digital face with remarkable realism due to the close anatomical similarities between human and gorilla facial muscles. One of the key references for bringing Kong to life was the facial structure of gorillas. Their eyes, brows, and expressions closely resemble those of humans, allowing the filmmakers to draw inspiration from real-life animal behavior and translate those emotions into Kong's character. Photographs of silverback gorillas also served as important visual references during the early stages of the animation process. To portray Kong, actor Andy Serkis underwent nearly 2 hours of motion capture makeup each day. Around 135 small tracking markers were attached to various points on his face after principal photography. Serkis then spent an additional 2 months on a motion capture stage, recreating Kong's movements and expressions so digital animators could transform his performance into the giant ape seen on screen. Beyond Kong himself, Skull Island is inhabited by dinosaurs and other massive prehistoric creatures. Inspired by the artwork of Dougal Dixon, the designers imagined how 65 million years of isolated evolution might have transformed dinosaurs and other ancient wildlife, creating the island's unique ecosystem. Music. The film's original score was initially set to be composed by Howard Shore, who had previously collaborated with Peter Jackson on the Lord of the Rings trilogy. However, due to creative differences with Jackson, Shore left the project in October 2005. He was quickly replaced by James Newton Howard, who began composing the score later that month. Howard had only 5 weeks to complete the music, making it one of the most demanding projects of his career. The recording sessions took place at the Sony Scoring Stage in California and Todd Ellis Studios in Los Angeles, featuring a 108-piece orchestra, an 80-member choir, and a wide variety of instruments. The soundtrack also includes Al Jolson's recording of I'm Sitting on Top of the World, Peggy Lee's Bye Bye Blackbird, and several musical themes from Max Steiner's iconic score for the original 1933 King Kong, released by Decca Records on December 7, 2005. The soundtrack received positive reviews and was later nominated for the Golden Globe Award for Best Original Score. Marketing. The film's marketing campaign officially began on June 27, 2005. When the teaser trailer premiered online on the film's official website at 8:45 p.m. It was then broadcast across NBC Universal's media outlets, including NBC, Bravo, CNBC, and MSNBC. The trailer also played in theaters alongside War of the Worlds, which premiered on June 29, 2005. Throughout production, Peter Jackson regularly released a series of production diaries that gave fans an inside look at the filmmaking process. These videos were originally created shortly after the DVD release of The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King, to give fans a preview of Jackson's next major project. Each diary, typically 3 to 4 minutes long, featured behind-the-scenes footage, set tours, interviews with cast and crew, demonstrations of special effects, motion capture sessions with Andy Serkis, and an inside look at the film's sound design and post-production work. Together, they formed an extensive making of a documentary that became highly popular among fans. Several tie-in products were released alongside the film, including a novelization, a prequel novel titled King Kong: The Island of the Skull, and the multi-platform video game Peter Jackson's King Kong, which featured an alternate ending. A hardcover companion book, The World of Kong: A Natural History of Skull Island, showcased concept art from Way to Workshop while exploring the fictional wildlife and history of Skull Island. Peter Jackson has also expressed interest in remastering King Kong in 3D. During production, he experimented with 3D camera technology, hoping to revisit the film in the future. Box office in North America: King Kong earned $9.8 million on its opening Wednesday and $50.1 million during its first weekend, for a 5-day opening total of $66.2 million from approximately 7,500 screens across 3,568 theaters. Although some analysts considered the opening lower than expected, the film steadily gained momentum throughout its theatrical run. It eventually grossed $280.1 million in North America, finishing among the 5 highest-grossing films of the year. Internationally, it earned an additional $338.8 million, bringing its worldwide total to $556.9 million. This not only placed it among the top 5 highest-grossing films worldwide in 2005 but also allowed the film to earn back more than 2.5 times its production budget. The film was equally successful on home video. It generated over $100 million in DVD sales, making it one of Universal Pictures' biggest DVD releases. By June 25, 2006, more than 7.6 million DVD copies had been sold in North America alone, generating nearly $194 million in sales. In addition, the film earned almost $38 million from DVD rentals. In February 2006, Turner Broadcasting System and ABC reportedly paid Universal Pictures $26.5 million for the television broadcast rights. Critical response: King Kong received widespread critical acclaim. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 84% based on 286 reviews, with an average rating of 7.7 out of 10. The site's critical consensus praises the film's state-of-the-art visual effects, thrilling action, memorable performances, and spectacular scale, describing Peter Jackson's King Kong as a powerful epic that remains faithful to the spirit of the original 1933 classic. On Metacritic, the film has a score of 81 out of 100 based on 39 critic reviews, indicating universal acclaim. Audiences surveyed by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A, reflecting its strong reception among moviegoers. King Kong, 2005, received widespread critical acclaim and earned positive reviews from both critics and audiences. Renowned film critic Roger Ebert awarded the film 4 out of 4 stars and ranked it among his top 10 films of 2005, placing it 8th on the list. The film received 4 Academy Award nominations, including Best Visual Effects, Best Sound Mixing, Best Sound Editing, and Best Production Design. It won 3 of these awards: visual effects, sound mixing, and sound editing, while missing out on production design. Entertainment Weekly praised Kong as one of the most convincing computer-generated characters ever created for a film at the time. However, some critics felt that Peter Jackson retained several outdated story elements from the 1933 original. Although these aspects drew criticism, It was generally acknowledged that Jackson's intention was to remain faithful to the classic film. In 2008, King Kong was ranked number 450 on Empire magazine's list of the 500 greatest movies of all time. Reviews from The Guardian were divided. One reviewer praised the film, saying it matched and in some ways even surpassed Peter Jackson's achievements in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. In contrast, columnist Charlie Brooker criticized the film, describing it as overly long, excessively ambitious, and more spectacular than necessary. The film also contains numerous references and Easter eggs. During the scene in which Jack Black's character, Carl Denham, searches for a place to sleep in the animal storage area aboard the ship, a rat monkey can be seen behind him biting a stuntman. This is a reference to the creature featured in Peter Jackson's 1992 horror comedy Brain Dead, Dead Alive. Another reference involves the giant spider mentioned in Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes story The Adventure of the Sussex Vampire. In the film, the rat monkey is described as coming from Skull Island, further connecting it to Jackson's earlier work. While traveling to Skull Island, Jimmy reads passages from Joseph Conrad's novel Heart of Darkness, comparing the expedition to Conrad's famous Journey into the Unknown. Peter Jackson originally invited Fay Wray, the actress who played Ann Darrow in the 1933 King Kong, to make a brief cameo. She was intended to deliver the iconic final line, "It was beauty killed the beast." Although she initially declined, she later considered the offer. Sadly, she passed away at the age of 96 before filming began. As a result, the famous line was ultimately spoken by Carl Denham, just as it was in the original film. During the Times Square destruction sequence, a Universal Pictures advertisement can be seen in the background. In the 1933 film, the same location featured a Columbia Pictures sign. The production team initially planned to recreate the original advertisement, but Columbia requested a much higher licensing fee, so it was replaced. Early in the film, when Carl Denham discusses casting a new leading actress, he suggests Fay Wray for the role. His assistant replies that she is already working on another picture with RKO Pictures. This is a direct reference to Ray's real-life career. At the time, the original King Kong, 1933, directed by Merian C. Cooper and Ernest B. Soedzak, was released by RKO Pictures. Ray was starring in another Cooper production, The Most Dangerous Game, 1932, alongside Robert Armstrong, who also appeared in the original King Kong. The film's opening credits also feature references to the classic Beauty and the Beast theme, emphasizing one of the story's central ideas of the tragic relationship between Beauty and the Beast. Peter Jackson's 2005 remake of King Kong pays tribute to the original 1933 classic through numerous visual and dialogue references. One early example occurs when Ann Darrow says she has never been on a ship before, echoing a similar exchange between Ann and Jack Driscoll in the original film. Jack Driscoll's skeptical attitude toward Kong and his stage performances also closely mirror the 1933 version. The film recreates several iconic moments from the original, including the native sacrifice ceremony, and tied to the sacrificial altar, and the villagers' costumes and blackface paint. During these scenes, Max Steiner's original 1933 musical score is used as a tribute to the classic film. The final battle between Kong and the last V-Rex closely resembles the climactic fight between Kong and the Tyrannosaurus Rex in the 1933 film. Many of Kong's actions, including breaking the dinosaur's jaw, beating his chest, and roaring in victory, are direct recreations of the original. After Kong is captured on the beach, Carl Denham delivers one of the most memorable lines from the 1933 film. "The world will pay to see this. We're millionaires, boys. I'll share it with all of you. In a few months, his name will be up in lights on Broadway. King Kong, the eighth wonder of the world." Home media releases. King Kong was released on DVD in the United States and Canada on March 28, 2006, by Universal Studios Home Entertainment. 3 editions were available: a single-disc full-screen version, a single-disc wide-screen version, and a 2-disc special edition. On November 14, 2006, an extended edition was released in the United States, followed shortly by an Australian release. This version added approximately 12 minutes of new footage to the film, along with more than 14 hours of bonus features, including documentaries, behind-the-scenes material, and production diaries. A special HD DVD edition was also released as part of Microsoft's promotional bundle for the Xbox 360 HD DVD drive, which included the HD DVD player, a Universal Media Remote, and a copy of King Kong. The HD DVD was later made available as a standalone release. Both the theatrical and extended cuts were released together on Blu-ray on January 20, 2009. On February 7, 2017, Universal released the Ultimate Edition, featuring nearly all the bonus content from previous DVD releases, including Peter Jackson's production diaries. An Ultra HD Blu-ray edition followed in July 2017. Planned sequel in 2013. Director Peter Jackson expressed interest in producing a sequel titled Skull Island, with director Adam Wingard attached to direct and Simon Barrett writing the screenplay. Jackson was impressed by Wingard's work on Your Next and discussed the possibility of continuing the story. One concept placed the film during World War I, making it a prequel. Another proposal explored a modern-day sequel. However, none of these ideas moved forward, partly because the rights to King Kong had transferred to Warner Brothers, making the Universal-produced sequel difficult to develop. Instead, Warner Brothers rebooted the franchise with Kong, Skull Island, 2017, which became part of the Monsterverse. Adam Wingard later directed Godzilla vs. Kong, 2021, and its sequel, Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire, 2024. Theme park attractions. Peter Jackson's remake inspired several attractions at Universal theme parks. At Universal Orlando Resort, the Skull Island, Reign of Kong attraction is based on elements from the film. After the original King Kong attraction at Universal Studios Hollywood was destroyed in a massive fire, it was replaced in 2010 by King Kong 360 3D. A 3D experience featuring scenes inspired by Peter Jackson's remake. Production facts: the computer-generated Empire State Building took approximately 18 months to create. Andy Serkis portrayed Kong through motion capture technology. More than 130 facial expressions were captured and studied to accurately convey Kong's emotions. Kong's roar was created by taking a lion's roar, playing it backward, and slowing it to half speed to produce a unique sound. Naomi Watts performed scenes both with Andy Serkis in the motion capture suit and with a performer wearing a practical Kong costume during production. Jack Black wore a wig during filming because Peter Jackson was dissatisfied with his original hairstyle. At the time of its release, King Kong was one of the most expensive films ever made. It later lost that distinction after the release of Superman Returns. The film is the second remake of the original 1933 King Kong, following the first remake released in 1976. Box office performance. Released on December 14, 2005, King Kong starred Naomi Watts, Jack Black, Adrien Brody, Thomas Kretschmann, Colin Hanks, Jamie Bell, Evan Parke, Kyle Chandler, and John Sumner. It was directed, co-written, and produced by Peter Jackson, with music composed by James Newton Howard. The film had an estimated production budget of approximately $207 million. It earned around $218 million at the domestic box office and approximately $562 million worldwide, making it one of the highest-grossing films of 2005. The movie was also highly successful on home video. During 2006, it sold millions of DVD copies and generated more than $100 million in DVD revenue. Hong Kong box office. In 2005, Hong Kong's cinema market experienced a difficult year in 2005, with total box office revenue declining compared to previous years. Only 2 locally produced films finished among the year's top 10 highest-grossing movies. while foreign films dominated ticket sales. The combined box office for foreign films increased significantly, accounting for nearly 69% of total ticket sales, while the market share for local productions dropped to around 31%. Among the year's biggest films were A Sense Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, A Sense The Incredibles, A Sense War of the Worlds, A Sense Mr. and Mrs. Smith, A Sense King Kong, A Sense. Several successful local Hong Kong productions. Critical reception. King Kong received generally positive reviews from critics. Many praised Peter Jackson's passion for the original 1933 film, the groundbreaking visual effects, Andy Serkis's motion capture performance, and the emotional relationship between Kong and Ann Darrow. One reviewer summarized the experience perfectly: when it's good, it's very good, but when it's not, it feels really, really long. Watching Peter Jackson's version of King Kong, it is immediately clear how deeply he admired the original 1933 classic, much like his love and respect for J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. That passion is evident throughout the film, making it both a tribute to cinema history and an ambitious modern reimagining. One can really feel how instantly he guides film playing of the home page to the originally, really expanding on it the more than just a little bite. Unfortunately, the explanation is one of the problem within the movie, but I will get to that in a bite. I did not suppose I really need to go into the story itself, but there are a few the chance from an additional to this the version when the compare to the 1933 films here and a draw. Naomi was shown to be a stage performer at the outside of the film, basically the and the where you were showed during the Great Depressions in order to make a living. Time is spent up front showing the state of things in the New York City in the regards to the struggle to surviving that the devastating inconings drowns diving the inconing runs creates the effort. We meet her the co-performance Tight Kite the title family included and the elder gentleman who passes from a father further for her, and we get to know at least Anna and he's the gentleman well enough in the few early minutes of the film to really feel fathom the when the theaters where the performance is the unnecessary closely down cutter Crinum played by Anna unusually sub-brand Jack the Black in a meeting with the money means strong to pitches the movie in a progress and to get more money to go shoot on the location at the mysterious Iceland indicated on map which has the just come into his the position he is came out in or his position he is portrayed as Amana with the versions throwing his the cinematic pill before the nominated Buddha they ignore swins the fencers have the already sunk $40,000 into his the pictures big bucks back them and decide the two cut their loss and sell offer. Jack has the film so far as the stock footage. Jack overhears his and Thea decide to track off with the exciting role of the film pulls all the camera equipment to make the movie anyway a deposit. Jack overhears this and Thea decide to take off with the exciting role of film pulls all the camera equipments to make the movie anyway a deposit. The loss of his the letting a actress and the all finance in the mine are very similar to the original film. Toa finds and all thoughts here it makes a bite more convincing to talk her into the joining him. There are funny throwaway lines in their debates but Isa being the trustworthy because he has a movie producer say he talked his way onto the scape deposit. The caption note the trusting him and also the Lindsay playwright Jack the Dick crawls into Thea coming along in order to finish the only appraise then the screenplay it runs he talk his way onto the ship deposit. Thea caption not trusting him and also the he talk his way onto the ship deposit. Thea caption not the trusting him and also with the one glance playwright Jack calls Thea dreaded into the coming along in order to finish the only the part y'all joined the screenplay. It turns out that Thea only reasons Anna decide to come along was because the disc crawl was Thea writing the film and that she was a big fan of his the play. So one major difference is that the instead of Olivia's Silver Crawls is a well-known and the showpiece guy playwright. We are also introduced she hoist even Parker will seems to play a role closer to that of the originally the Drake Crawl and the Jimmy Jam spell as a young deformer stowaway out of to prove himself. Finally we find out ourselves out to sea and all the way to the Iceland. It took a very long time to get to this point and we also spend what seems to me to be in the introduced amount of time getting to Skull Island and Peter Jackson, it took a while the developing Thea relations between the Jack and the Anna in order to make it the more real for the audience. The problem is that a lot of that the effort went to spot nothing of the more than the Jack determination to not leave Anna behind. The real relationship in this the movie Isa between Anna and the Kong. Some of you are reading this did not even go there. Fortunately, while a lot of time Isa spent showing the development of Thea Kong in a relationship, it is time well spent, and in the circus the actor wore the expirations. The moment is behind Thea. CGI Kong did a phenomenal job, as I did the animators, of making Kong real musical like the original filmmakers. The idea here was that the more fearsome Kong boss at the beginning of the film, the more we would feel upon his death. King Kong, in the normal words, the realist stole the shoe here. No question the time spent on screen to show the both of them. What a joy to watch the process of the relationship, the changing from a fear and the grizzly to genuine caring in the canon was the completely believable. However, when the action shifted to the reset of the crew thing, it did not start to refer to were the spectacular. There did come time where I found myself taking is noted as the scene over yet with a remark of awe such as the iconic film. One cannot help but make the comprehensions and many times throughout the film. I asked myself why this one took their hours to tell the same story the original did so effectively in half that time. Strangely, the only character that I thought was going to be the close to the original was Thea curls denims and the hair ready. Actually would have the performance to see Jack Black tap into some of his Thea over-the-top energy to popularity dynamics, and more like the barely spinal cracker the Robert Strong play in Thea 1933. Jack just never worked from Thea, but not for more reasons I also accepted going. I think it was the more due to the Peter Jackson's take on Thea character than the acting itself. The dynamics was the more human, yes, but he did not strike as me as the kind of fat man that would have the sheer force to evil the required to bring back great the King Kong. Toward the end of the film, the scenes where the Kong is Thea introduced to the pink audience for the quiet, well done and effective right at the throat to the war, the escape he's Thea bound in the remake in times the square. There is a new the sequels in the film show causing how Kong climbs down on Thea, he finds Anna, and how they go over and do the recounts like the old friends until they're the pieces the setter by Thea. Military coming after the Kong. Of course, they eventually end up at the top of the Empire State Buildings. And there the against things seems to go on the longer than they need to just for the sake of the poor screen time within the Kong and the special effects. When it does come down to the Jackson focusing once more on the character, it does all come together once more except for the two things. The weekly, Thea delivery, it was the beauty then Skull, the beast by the black in the final scenes between the Kong and the Naomi wars, which the local like it was Thea stayed from the end of the Titanic's final law. CGI effects especially for Kong were the flawless. I did not for a second think I was looking at the gearification the scenes on the Iceland with the native might be to the instant for the Seven and the Underground. Some of them looking really creepy, and it's an extreme close-up that they even creep me out a bite. All in all, a really good movie that could have been a great movie if it had 30 minutes or so from the of course the DVD versions will probably be 4 hours long and will not doubt suffer for it. King Kong iconic Empire State Building scene. Xena the Peter Jackson's movie gets low currency score from the Primetal expert. Kong behavior in the iconic Empire State Building scenes in Thea Peter Jackson's King Kong Laxicary. According to the Primetal of the movie, they accurately show Kong protections in nature towards Anna Drive. And by this the aggressions and Thea climbing abilities are not the typical of the real glories are released in King Kong without work due to his Thea financial organ size and the unique requisitions. The iconic Empire State Building Thea scene in the Peter Jackson's King Kong remark he's the receive a low Aturi score from the primate expert Maria Thea Muir, who says the sequence only get a few things right about the how glorious a behavior the 2005 monster movie feature us the trials app feeling in the love with an Adrian's a human woman on and Thea exportation on he's the home of Thea Skull Iceland. He is evidently brought back to the mainland where he grows in a rampage to the new city, a stamp or fathom any King Kong movie, sparking with any insight for dear theories. How rare it is. The mayor gives King Kong title characters a low carrot score when Thea comparing his behavior to the other real glories. Starting at the 0.35 apologist explained how the Konga climbing the Empire State Building ended the way he show his the anger and Thea Echarites compared to his the real world components. However, she does give Thea movie credit for his the protective natured word and check out what Thea Muir had to say the below. Kaya spend most of their time on the ground. I have yet to observe them the climbing trees with a lot of the skull and the destructive by the scaly Empire State Building, especially animals that decided noted to the problem there. The iconic visual that you see in the movie of Thea Gloria speeding on there the cheats, but it's not really a form of the aggression if you will, it's more of a wearing and while they were the incredible strong and believable enable me I get and the adrenal rush every time I am the charge they were not violence animal the only and while they were the incredible strong and believe me I get and the Andrina rush every time I am changed they are not the villains animals. The only time that I have ever really witnessed a Gloria be aggressive is when the another Millie tries to own and they take one of father the female and they really kind of father destroy that the family into so these are the really strong animals but they were also a very gentle and the natching side to them that you don't often see in the Medi. King Kong is the deposit at being 25 feet tall, which is the now here near even what we so know as the largest app from the fossils record, which is the Ganoppers. It's the estimated to be the about 10 feet tall less than the disappearance about the 300,000 years ago, and notice the even half the size of what King Kong is deposited to be because this is such an iconic film and they do make the attempt to bring it the glorious qualities such as that the process and the gentle nature that he show in a draw. I am going to give it a 3 out of 10 just for that. King Kong would not be the same if Ida was the more realistics. The premium of King Kong is the already stepped in the science function. Not just because of the size and the density, but also because of where he comes from in every short story about the giant Gloria. Kong is from Skull Island and the uncracked drawer where everything from the dealer says to join the instant from and the free. The teller app is simply one of those the creatures was the connection to makes him stand out also the less of a monster than everything else living on the island. However, this tag the original explain why a realistic version of him would not work. In Peter Jackson remark, one key of the reasons I avoid does not to see Hong Kong as the dangers is because of his willingness to protect her from the many dangers on the island. One of the most of the memorable scenes in this movie show the fracking of their gains. A pack of stormers decks killing them all in the order to protect her from being extend this way to humanization that turtle characters might not have the work as well as a more realistic danger. King Kong height is also important, as it makes him spectral to be Lord. A more realistic version of the King Kong would not work because without his the height aggressions and the connection to into the story simply would not stand out so much as it does. However, your insight into what is the end and is not accurate in the Jackson versions offer plenty of the interesting information about how real glorious operate where such information can be they applied to the movie. It does show how the joint parts stand out among both other fiction characters and his real-world counterparts. Jack Black most underrated role in the villain in this the 2005 movie 84% in other Rotten Tomatoes. Jack Black most underrated performance in is the Peter Jackson's King Kong. Black is best known for his the comedy and the voice working of the projects included School of the Rock, Julia Welcome to the Jungle, the Kung Fu Panda franchisees and the Super Mario Bros movie from the Daphne finds attracting a School of Jack Black most underrated performances in the Peter Jackson King Kong. Black is known for his comedy and voice work in the projects included School of the Rock, the Jamanales, Welcome to the Jungle, the Kung Fu Panda and the Super Media Brothers movie from the TV finds Anti-School, the Rock Bros, the Peaches song that went viral. Black excels at the many different types of the comedy often with the contributor as the musical talent. While Black is a stellar comedic actor, he also deserves more the recognition for his the role as the girl. Diana is the King Kong. The 2005 film received an 84% critical score on the Rotten Tomatoes and E's. While Black is a stellar comedy actor, he also deserved more the recognitions for the role as the Cardinal King of Kong. The 2005 film received an 84% critical score on the Rotten Tomatoes and is generally regarded as one of the best King Kong movie. It received the Paris for its the cinematography the sins of the big-budget spectral Jacksons brought in the wake of the directing the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the strong performance from Thea Black and the rest of the cast and the broad emotional the resources to the story while Naomi's note on the formation as the Kong or the various start of the dinosaurs and the giant Parke and all the Skull Island. He is King Kong through evil and it is the filmmaker's greed and the distractions that drive him to Skull's Island and it is that the Sami agree that the conversation dynams to take Kong from his the home and bring the giant up to New York City. Dynam acknowledging and drinks those involved in the production of his the movie and the crew of the SS Ventures during their the travelers and time on the Skull Island and the Iraqs all of the New York City after bring King Kong here when the group is approached by the dinosaurs the dynamoids taking the tribe from his the loyal the cameraman her. Wu hands over the tripod before he is eaten alive. After all of the footage is destroy and the deposit all the deaths that he happened because of his action. Dynam let some more the people die in the order to capture Kong as he refused to leave his Skull's Island without some things of the value to pay off his the debts and to become the rich. He was also the intention deposits also were the SS also the Ventures was the height in the first place concealing the truth from Anadrone Naomi WS and the several other Jack Black comedy makes the Cardinal Black comedy mocks Carol Amon more the sinister villain part of what the make the denims and effect villain instead of the 2005 version of the King Kong I so that the Black the portrait see him in a somewhat brownish in the bubbling manner. This leads otherwise to easily underestimate him as it seems the abuse to even the entertain the idea that the dynam's part of what the make the dynam villain in the 2005 versions of the King Kong is that the Black portrays him in a somewhat buffish and the babbling manners. This led other to the unwisely understate him also it seems abuse to even the intern the idea that the dynams could have the elaborate schemes and be international deposit or the ruthless Black the portals leos the audience and the mania of the characters into a false seems of the security which the ultimately make is the motive and the action field more instead. He was the perfect choice to play a human villain's force. The bottoms agreed and the ambitions could stand out at the proof front of the story even when the screen is occupied by the spectral of the Kong of Vitriol's racks. This is why deposit some the criticism of his prophets. Black was not the muskiest in this the role. He was the perfect choice to play a human villain was the bottom mill's greed and the ambitions could stand at the forefront of the story even when the screen is the occupied by the spectral of the Congra Tricom racks. It is the international that the dynam is the real cooperating fox and the danger even when the comprite to these the tower wins a fearsome creatures. King Kong proves as a Jack Black is more than a comedying actors. While Black does brings the comedy to his performance in the King of Kong, he bring the necessary drama also well. This is the right amount of the dramatic identity when the throw Kiora the renders Kong unconscious and at the end with his the shock and the horrified expirations when the sees Gong bodily in the stairs of the mans and the declareza that the void killed Kong was not the aeroplanes it was the beauty that Thea killed the beast. King Kong ending would not have the work without the Black will bring the necessary creatives to the final and the iconic lines. As Black a career the continue, he will the undoubtables continue to be cast in the comedic role in live action. As Black a career continue, he will the undoubtedly continue to be in cast the comedic role Leah in the live action and the animated project. At the same time he should be giving more the opportunities like King of Kong in which he can defactly use his the comedic abilities where also the domestic his the dramatic talents that he does not often get to the show cause. King Kong is in the underrated chapter in the Black career with his the performance as the dynaming to be also well regarded as some of his the other celebrate roles. King Kong 5 Ways of Peter Jackson's the remark is the better than the original 5 Ways is the work after changing the face also Thea blockbuster cinema with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Peter Jackson the commander record-breaking $27 million to help a big-budget remake of one of his the favorite film, the classic Hollywood versions of the King Kong with a twice the runtime and 300 times the budget. Jackson's remake has a large scale than it the predecessor, The Lord of the Rings. The 5 reasons why the Raps area animated the adaptations are better than the film 5-way. Peter Jackson trilogy is still the best Jackson after Factions. For the 1933 original comes though in the faithfulness of his the remark booted deposit the trend-loving care the hero brought to the project is the 2005 a remark is not quite as the great as it's and the breaker still is a pretty satisfying update of the classic D and in some way an improvement on its the source material. A battery and strikes the beauty of Hossa King Kong always the monster is the sympathetic. In the 1933 the app was brought to life using the models and the stop motions and his the treatment is best and the latter. As a spectral medium the plenty sympathetic but anti-sky motion capture performances Kong in the 2005 remark makes him and even more the sympathetic characters. There are reasons strikes is the go-to guy for the mob while the over longer runtime both King Kong movie tell the same story. A director bring his cast and the crew to Skuldy Iceland. They find a giant app leaving the bring it back to New York to turn into a stage show. I'd escaped from it bring it back to New York to run into a stage show. I'd escaped from it's the shackless and Thea bounce across the city and then it gets killed at the top of the Empire State buildings. The difference is the 1933 original told that story with a much more economy. The Mercy Cropper and the Boss short desk fit all the blood into a brick 100 times runtime where the Peter Jackson told the same story it took him over the 3 hours. Better more the spectral action. The action seems ice to the original King Kong movie area compelling but the action in the 2005 a remark is on another level. In the original the characters the nearly fly into a chest filled with the giants split in the remark they actually fall in and to the end with those backs and hand to hand they come. The stop modifications effect in the original art impression but the Kong battles with the dinosaurs are a lot more the rivetings and the whistle Lisa with the flusty state of the art the gear worse lessons of the adventure. Willie the original King Kong is the head also one of the greatest monster movie even made at the doubles as one of the greatest adventure movie ever made. The 1933 the masterpiece wonder scenes of the adventure matches that of the fitness masterpiece of the Jennifer Roma up to the writers of the Lost Eric the scenes of the adventure in the remark is not on the nearly the same level of Jackson's too often the favor the grissa horror image why over the fun of the adventure. Better strong performance. The acting in the original King Kong movie is the perfectly the survivable the particulessa by the legendary Scream Queen Favoria Bad. The performance feel the audience in more than a few scenes by the composition. The acting is a remark is much better. Patty Jackson's the customa of the greatest actor working today noms in his likes Jack Black. By composition the acting is the remark is much better. Peter Jackson caused some of the greatest actor working today. Naomi W.S. Anja strikes Jack Black and Adrien Brody to give these the character this non-the a lack in the original no the ground broken. What really bell the audience away from the original King Kong movie was it the groundbreaking special effect. It broke all kinds of the new ground and deposit the dated look. The effect held up to his T. The remark isa the technical very the masterful and it's the CGI effect look the incredible but it did not break any new ground or they changed the course of the movie making like the original did better more rounded the characters. The original King Kong movie gives the audience a feel for the individual personality of the characters like the Onidro Curls the Dynams and the Jack the Dry Skulls booted the focus is so often on the monster that the human cast occasionally gets lost in the fairy in the remark the characters are much more rounded the particles Anna and the Jack was the romances that develop enough in the ramp to create a bride king of love the triangle with the Kong verse less the state of cinematography with a huge huge swiping cringing Naggia-ridden action scenes. The King Kong remark has much less the dynasty visual state than the original movie. The original movie had its the own achieved through a combination of live action animation shot on the black and the white film, whereas the remark of the aesthetic is the closer to a genre the blockbuster better not the resta overtone. All thought the film the creators Danish did as was the international. Many critics nor the recite overtones in the original King Kong movie. It's been read as the Boda metaphor for the American sliver and a cartography tale about the international dating. The same the allergy can be seen in the Peter Jackson remarks inside. It retains the original plot but it's the much less over and the effective word made to remove the resist over the versus the overkill. Peter Jackson King Kong is the definitions of the overkill. Every plot point is the over-explained. Every scene's is way the longer than I need to be there, and the scale of the very set pieces is the unnecessary messy for 3 hours. It beats the audience over the head with the CGI and the noise. The original movie has the dinosaurs fight and the app lover, but it never goes to a 4. It never feels like they overkill. The remark on the other hand has longer the schedules that they become the excusing and we are daily welcome. King Kong VFX artists break down the Empire State Building scenes. King Kong visuals affect the artist Robin Locans also broken down what went into the creating of the movie Climactic Empire State the Building scenes. 2005 King Kong was the third reward of the classic story of the Giant's Gloria. The film was held by the Lord of the Rings directed Peter Jackson and was the effort blockbuster after the was the first blockbuster after the Returns of the King Kong tells the tale of the greedy filmmakers played by the Jack Black who assemble a crew to make a movie on Skull Island where they find one of the cinema most famous the monster. While the film was mad with the mixed through the mostly positive review, the Academy Award included one for the best visual effect. Luke's himself Isa and the Incredibles accomplice artist as well as the being part of the King Kong Oscar-winning teams. Movie goals will have seen him work the so word in nearly every current major Hollywood franchise included Star Wars, The Avengers, X-Men, The Averter and most recently Junior, which has been nominated for the Best Visuals Effect Oscars. King Kong was the looking second time the Overking with the Jackson having the previously lent his the talents to the Lord of the Rings circulations The Returns of the King, which on a whipping 11 Academy Award in a recent video from the Quarters crew. The crew get down with the Lockman to the analyze both good and the bad gear from the many different Hollywood film. In the video Lockman's broken down what went into the creating King Kong the iconic. In a recent video from the Quarter crew the crew sat down with the Lockman to the analyze both good and the bad CGI from the many different Hollywood film. In the video, Lamrana broke down what went into the creating a King Kong the iconic Empire State the building scenes. During the scenes, Akiyama climbing at the side of the New York building while the carrying Anna and Naomi in the one hand. Lim state that only of his goals was to make Kong climbing load the laborious as he had been injured at that point in the film. If viewers watch the closely Thea can see that Low Man has the animated Thea scene so that Kong has to pose as Willie. He's the arm curious from his Thea injuries during the climb. According to Low Man, Kong was a joy. Kong was a joy to the animate especially because of actor and Strike's motion capture performance. See he's fully quiet below. It's hard to the causes he injured at this the point and he has to feel a lightly curious. So I have a little pause at one moment and you see a little elbow shake and he trying to get his the arm up. So it just did the small bites and the pieces to try and add a little bite of the substancy of White Kong going to it's a joy for and admit it causes you got such a great beats here to King of Words to kind of work with you have a performance from and the Andy strikes as well. Then we could go into the further and make it more. Thea Gloria Ullman has also talked about how W's character is the post in the scene as on a card, which means that the hero performance was the shoot separate the end of the surprise and then the Amish Thea means that cannot be the trend in on the way as she is only a flake to the dimensional image. Once look men point to his this edit is the quite notably this is in the excellent illustrations of how for CGI has come in such a short amount of time just under 20 years ago and this this was to the tried CGI. However, only a short amount of the time later Thea scene is already showing it's the age somewhere. This is not to say of course that the scenes that continue visuals effect I simply show how fast they are from the disabling I look meant, so they certainly did. This is not to say of course that the continue poor visual effect, it's just simply show how fast this art form is the evolving look. Mana certainly did the excellent work with the tools available to him, and has Thea scenes gone on to work on the film that and to boost even the granted and Thea further groundbreaking visuals. Perhaps 20 years from now moviegoers will even start to notice that a visual Thea spectral such as the Dana is starting to show it's the age somewhere. By then Thea Lambs may be working on the next big information in the CGI, but no matter how at the age he can always see that he was the artist behind one of the most iconic scenes in the King Kong 2005 review. In some way, it seems kind of Thea standard to me that the Baker Jackson King Kong was as the honestly and accepted as it was. I mean, where you come from, a lot of the meaning for can remember that difference between a Kong and the Godzilla without taking a moment to think about it, and we all remember that happened when Thea Hollywood to remark the Godzilla back in 1998, a remark of the King Kong. Not only has it been done before Thea badly in 1976, but the original is and the undistant magic name in all of his is obviously a Peter Jackson's, and that make all the difference for his the closely watch and the highly accepted follow-up to his The Lord of the Rings. Master W. Jackson choose to remark what he thought commonly referred to as the favorite film and the one movie that he glimly truly mad him want to be a filmmaker's that an author things that the sort of the danger house of white kind of the filmmaker set out to remark he's the favorite movie is noted that in the some way like the admission you are on the sorority to it would or the cutely and fun the perfect Jacksons think that the boy whatever his motion if for the doing this film we can be some way like the admin on the surprise to Ida would ever curly on for the Peter Jackson things that why whatever his emotions for the doing this the film we can be thankfully his take on the King of Kong is pride the internet achievement of the highest level, not the only does it operate as a very respective lovey letter to original 1933 film wisdoms have the call the Star Wars of it deep ice effectly building upon it not only in terms of the special effect but also in terms of the correct decisions and the storytelling. It is the critical must-see movie of the year, hands down. I admitted that I am not someone being waiting for his the beat. Almost I grew to love the large series. I really missed the Peter Jackson stuff in theaters and earlier in all the honesty when the rest of the word jump on the Jacksons bad gowns most of the steel obviously to his the early work was the temptation to recommend the Baptist I felt bite announced the wool things, so while still wishing the man best of luck I sat back arms crossed demanding that the things a King Kong movie off his which he been trying to get me scenes before the Lord approve itself. I have worried the film star may be big in the sinky boot of the film is the most certainly not, and I don't mean Jack Black, it sound ridiculous, but the story in some ways amounts to have a love triangle between the Naomi words and Adrien Kong of the Adrien Brody Jacks. If I were behind I'd be stag too, considering that I have not been a fan of the body since he's the big Oscars the kiss strikes, but fear no to ring King Kong is not the poor the best reality film that the Hollywood thinks of the world has been waiting for. Autumn midnight venture and excitement 3 are the some bakers themes to consider, included those of the obsessions opportunities and making uncomfortably close the property to the animal world when it come to the prime behavior. Flow to voice this aversion strike very closely to the original for those we are unfamiliar with that the film stop being a such loser and get that DVD aspect familiarity with that the film is noted the required to greatly enjoy his new one, but it does bring a signification and additional layer of reward to the preceding home abuse and to the dialogues the customs and even the scenes from the original loving trends up, and can almost assume that the 1933 A3 directions Marina say crop opened Thea asked Shaw would be the pound of his Thea remark if not for its re-envisions of how the black girls dynam obviously based upon the Cooper in the original as Thea filmmaking Hust whistle that he is this the respect I have to give it to the remark is the greatest the cropper shout that glassy is it as the best to strike around the issue of what all Thea fault of all the chars and that even if it is the literally the filmmaker's Thea himself and the AOK most of gone to his fat the story of you don't already know it bings in the direction of New York City as the distress filmmakers the dilemma happened upon out of the work actress draw on the brink of the journey of the ship he cracked fra 4 of the mysterious destination Thea are headed for the last undiscovered a spot on the map which is in the dynam's mind the ultimate film location. It is a dark lost word forgetting by time and a home to some of the most deadly Thea inhabits ever more known to man. At about 1 hour's mark of this Thea 3-hour epic Kong make his the memorable debut making off into the hosted jungle without the beauty and given a chase by both the ship and Thea dynams into his crew. Peril encountered mostly involves dinosaurs almost of theme fresh to the screen as to both successfully avoid Jurassic Park. The composition and the enveloped viewers all the consume fancy word that the Sammy a familiar but not acquired real-life quality is then applied to Jackson's Thea wondrousing of the 1930s New York City where that auntie is the truly up to a giant tape proper dishing along the way. And alienly along the way Anna Lamalia become the enamored with the heartache after sings the wonder soul as the swag a beast fondly realized for the screen by the Witter workshop and the actor Randa the Golem the surprise viewers will feel more the sympathy for his Thea digital creation than for the most flesh all in the bloody characters in other film and know what is the perfectly cast as Thea draw leaving no mystery as to why only Kong falls for her. But why everyone else risk their life to get here back. Brody I must say is the competing as the Jack the risk Corey imaging here as the frustrating the playwright. Jack a break adventure gives very brief a glimpsing of being in over his the head in his big budget extra words as he eyes the saddle with the most the copper dialogues dated and the chases but also too glassy to not the include Buddha in the end he gets the job done James Thea Newton Hover runs in a rushing adventure a score worthy of the following the meeks of the snob that deposes over the 78 years ago and is till the fondly remembered as one of the greatest Thea musical score of all time. Jackson a script co-writer by his the usual Thea corporate friend Falls and the Philly owns and the direction proved that Thea Lot was not a flag if any were to actually think that on this image that of the places that even filmmaker and Thea storyteller of time I suppose the million-dollar question is that does Peter Jackson's King Kong actually manage to surprise the original classic hits note one that the many film buffs would dare ask so fear of having to the possibly giants surprisingly to make always and the ugly word in this case without even the test of the times one struggle to come up with another example of a modern the imagination that does the adjustic to it the classic source material in visions of the body sense come close but even the closer is the comic book series Ultimate Spider-Man which was the 6th issue where the Mr. Fly spent the fleshing out and the molding of the wall crawl origin first told over the 40 years ago in a mere 11 pages. Could any comic fan ever bring himself to say that the ultimate Thea Spider-Man to hope that this thinly stiffened the DTO original? No. That it would be like the screening but at the same time it's the unbelievable building upon it in the way that the only increased the story exactly the same as a true of the Kong film. The brains of the original cannot be the The beauty of his the remark is how it actually honor its source by rebuilding upon it in a pure and the wobble way. Same method of the King Kong has a long first hour also it is all character development and the expectations but I say it does not hurt the movie scene. It is the entertaining all of the while and if not any boredoms it will be the immediately forgotten on Thea the actions being anyway certain Thea moments will be too intense for Thea sensitive children but the passion of the Kong ending will bring out of Thea gushing sensitivities as everyone Peter Jackson film work is the many things addition adventure horror comedy romance and the tragedy, but above and beyond all of that, King Kong is the speculaifying the biggest bells in the whistle Lisa cinema in your neck of the woods, standing in a line for as long as it's the takes, and they enjoy every minute of it, because like all true cinematic marvel, the experience will merely be a reasonable the festival at the best, and since it's a universal it will probably be a buggy DVD it is anyhow, so enjoy this on the big screen while you can. This is one of the event that theater and it's the Inception behold, since it's the universal it will probably be a buggy DVD it anyhow, so enjoy this on Thea Big SCR. While you can, this is only a film even that they earn it. Thea Inception Beyond Kong, the 8th word of the word while 9th word if you can't. The 33 version. The Speculate King of Kong 2005 review summary. King Kong is a great film without the subtractions and the visual effect adding more or to Thea, evidence that the Jackson and Thea surprise deserve all the praises. Thea serve the running length is the only major problem, and that the subjective via plot. Peter Jackson, the expensive remark of the 1933 classic follow director recalls Dynam Jack Blake and Screw on a journey from the New York City to Theoman Skulls Iceland to the film New movie. Accompany him are the Pride Jacket. Peter Jackson expensive more of the 1933 a classic falling director calls Thea Dynam's Black and his the crew on Thea journey from the New York City to Arma Skulls Iceland to a film New movie. Accompanying him are the playwrights Jacket the disclosing the actress in a drone who is the wish away by Thea monsters up after the H Iceland Thea crew encounter dinosaurs and the other creatures as it is to the rescue, and while the actress form abound with here. The Simmons kept a review I don't think is so much about the King Kong where I first saw it. Yeah, it was the good, but it was too long to keep my the instant that there was a few years and Kong I have not seen the film in a while. This Thea time around I try, and Lord my is Thea still too long. I will start easy with it. The acting, everyone is the survival Belina their role, no one has anything too difficult to that da don't him it up or just flawed from the sense to seen as Naomi what was a good choice for Anna. She got a D the Angelina look, which means you can understand why Kong falls in love with her, but also you can never her for the screaming she saw, and it does not the quite a lot. Not only that the but is a good actress, so I am glad they just did not pick any Petrie for Thea characters. They managed to meet the hero fear and the Terrys and the sadness all feel real. And being a body was the good also the Jack. He fitted the writer to role better than the Rands turning one on. He's the safe girl attitude, the budget to me a little bit not enough to hate Thea guy. Also I did not like how the quickly he and fell for each the other it seems. Written role better than the gooness slotting on his 7. The girl attitude he abased me a little bit not enough to hate the guy. Also I did not like how quickly he and the Anna fell for each other. Ida seems the like 10 minutes went by and suddenly they were love. I don't hate Thea characters of the Jack, but I do think so he could been cut out and not a lot of that would be in the mist. The film did have the two great roles though. First Jack Blake and the girl. This is probably one of the Black's best roles outside of a comedy. He really seals the deposit a producer act. He lies see characters and the might as well as his stall all gated to himself out of the gutters. He never show be to be a villains or the simply he just a man pushed to edge it and want him as the time in the limelights. The second great role ice of the end strike is the Kong's rise show he good as the motion capture to great effect with the golem, and he not the difference here he makes the Kong stick action and great effort with the golem, and he's the difference here he makes the Kong and animalistic action and voice all the authentic, and frankly quite the brilliant. It hard to believe that it's a mean instead of just the plain CGI bust the screen make the characters and the role he's the own. Now after watching the Lurs trilogy Ian OJ is a great director, and there is just more evidence he managed to create the epic scope of this word that this time and the god has the forgetting from his the nightmare as a tribal attack to his sweeping shots of New York and the jungle. Jackson really has the eye for the camera and he know how to shoot a good action scenes. The T-Rex battle is a highlight of film and the Jackson does a fantastic job of it all. The visual effect area also the sibling Kong looks ultra convincing as good as he did Sweeney years ago. Kristen, this came out 7 years ago but still great in the close-up near the end of the visual effect are so all the siblings. Kong looks the ultra convincing not as good as he did 7 years ago. Christine H. The came out 7 years ago, but still in a close-up near that at the end of the film you can see every single hair on his face, which even today is the impressive the destruction Kong causes in New York and the panic that everyone has is also the wonderful to observe, especially the considering of that the Kong is not really there for a second. You almost believe he is now for the downside. As I have said before, the film is too long. I am fine with the long film. But this film like it could. We have always about 30 to 40 minutes and it would still be a great film. Even if some of the action scenes drag a little, the TRX fight while the highlights did go on a bite. It's enough to make me bored of the film, but it's enough to make me the lost instant for a few minutes. Overall, King Kong is a great film with the subs directing and visual effect adding more to the evidence that the Jacksons and the slice reverse all the Paris they received. The running length is the only major problem, and that the subjective definitely see this one in the from you opening a movie review. King Kong 2005 starring the Naomi Wars, Jack Black and Adrien Brody, Thomas Calling, Hank Anja Strikes, directed by Peter Jackson. If you had to think of one word to describe Peter Jackson's 187 epic remake of the classic 1933 movie of the same name, which had already sparked a 1976 remark, ID choice is more. I can think of no other words that better describe the dazzling spectacle of a film. That the more the movie has, the more the breathless action than this year war of the words, more ramping factories than the Hulk, more the dinosaurs battles than the juries, the park, more the soft focus lighting than the Sky Captain, and the word of the tomorrow, more art deco than the metro, more giants epic special effect than the MJ Youngs, more giant bugs than the Starship Droppers, more creepy children than the Rings, more the panic over a missed store joint than the Iron Giants, more department currently that the Project X. In this respect, a King Kong truly is something to exercise and experience that I do not believe could be the pellicate at home and all the DVD. The special effect of the spectacular and the art deco depression era sittings is the really fantastic Peter Jackson's that definitely has a flair for this, the type of filmmaking of the biggest spectral of a film that we have seen in quite a while, still bringing to get the audience to concept that the big gap in the question Kong Isa as the experience the CGA character as you can remember on the film, and the inferior adventure on the Skull Island is the inspiring in its the over the top the generally Jackson a loving film are the Naomi words drawing a even bite of the sympathy necessary to establish an Adrien and giving her every bite of the Hollywood the glamour originally imposed by her the freaks are free. She is absolutely stunning in the movie to the extra that one can stylish understand how a giant P could fall for her. It's not that Jackson is doing anything new with the King Kong. Everything that is done here has been done elsewhere. For the instance, all the movies I already mentioned is that he tries to do them all in the same film in a bigger scale than in the original movies. That the M's movie impression Ida saw the overwhelmed and the stuffs that it ends up working because of it. Just when you thought you have seen the biggest moment of the movie, another only follow quickly on at the heels. However, not of the more of these is more. The principle would have helped to the movie is the running time. 3 is the absolutely true reason for a blockbuster, the popcorn flick about a giant sap to last for 3 hours, and the 7 means this is an action flick and the like most action flick the action a reason for the outshine the known action scenes, yet it goes on in the like a costume drama. This movie could easily have lost half in the hour and been a much better for a fully hour, and it could have been the job without the sacrifice that the works, introduce the characters, show some of the delightful New York set up the anticeptions, add the beds to Skull Island, then give us the Dryman's monkey already. The longer Jackson takes the ding, the appearance of the Kong, the longer the audience has to notice the something clanky dialogues. The unspar characters, however, not all of the more of see the film working its the favor the major area wherein the application of the less is more principle would have to help the movie in its the running time. There's absolutely no reason for a blockbuster popcorn film about a giant epic to last for the 3 hours and 7 minutes. This is the action flick, and like the most action flick, the action scenes are for the outshine the known action scenes, yet it goes on like on the costume drama, and this movie could easily have lost half in the hour and been much more for it, full hours that could have been the job without the sacrificing of what works. Introduce the characters, show us some of the delightful New York setup at the inception of the but head to school Iceland, then they give us the demons a monkey already. The longer Jackson sticks the delling the appearance of Thea Kong, the longer an audience has no notice the something's clanky dialogues. They give us the demons monkey or daddy the longer Jackson takes me lying the appearance of the Kong. The longer the audience has to notice the sometimes clanky dialogues, the unspeared dark characters, and the hamped attempt at the wrapping of the heart of the darkness. He did not even hide it. One of Thea's soldier is the reading the book and the other give a demonstration on it to drive the point home. We get it, Jackson, you want to make this the deep thanks. Actually, when I said that there is absolutely no reason for a blockbuster popcorn flick about a giant sap to last for 3 hours and 7 minutes, what I mean is that there is absolutely no god reasons for a blockbuster popcorn flick about a giant epic to last for the 3 hours and the 7 minutes. The obvious reason for the extent play is the rather impressionism of the Peter Jackson blockbuster popcorn flick about a giant sap to last for 3 hours and the 7 minutes means what I means is that here is absolutely no god reason for a blockbuster popcorn flick about a giant epic to last for 3 hours and the 7 minute. The obvious reason for the extent play and the rather impressionism of the patter director of the Fighters look the Hobbit boy just because you had some success with the really long epic film recently, it does mean that the every film you make may be over 3 hours. In fact, I laugh at the idea that the Peter Jackson has become such a big name director that he can make the integral decisions like the making a movie twist along also the source material. I don't think Anya in the Void bought a ticket to Lord of the Rings because it was the projected by the director of, however not all of the more of this. The film is in favor, the major area and the application of the less is more principle would have helped the movie. It is the running time. There is absolutely no reason for a blockbuster popcorn flick about a giant app to last 3 hours and 7 minutes. This is an action flick, and like most action flick, the action scenes for the outshine the known actions, yet as they go on like a costume drama. This movie could easily have lost half an hour and been much better for it. A few hours could have been the job without the sacrificing what works. Introduce the characters, show some of the delightful New York setup, the antiception of the but head to school Iceland. The given as the demons monkey already the longest Jackson's take the denying the appearance of the gong. The longer audience has to notice the longer Jackson takes denying the appearance of gong. The longer the audience has to notice the something's clanky dialogues, the unspared clock characters, and the harm-fisted attempt at a wiping of the heart of the darkness. He did not even hide it. One of the soldier is reading the book and the other gives a destination audit to drive the point home. We get it, Jackson, you want to make this the deep thanks. Actually, when I said that there is absolutely no reason for a blockbuster pop conflict about a giant epic to last for the 3 hours and the 7 minutes. What I mean is that there is absolutely no good reasons for a blockbuster pop conflict about a giant app to last for 3 hours and the 7 minutes. The obvious reason for the extent plays rather than the impression the Gothians of Thea Battery Jackson's director of Thea Fighters. Actually, when I said that there's absolutely no reason for a blockbuster popcorn flick about a giant app to last for 3 hours and the 7 minutes, what I mean is that there is absolutely no good reason for the blockbuster popcorn flick about a giant app to last for 3 hours and 7 minutes. The obvious reason for the extent play is the rather impressions curious of the Peter Jackson director of the Fighters look habit boy. Just because you had some success with a really long epic film recently, it does not mean that even film you make be over the 3 hours. In fact, I laugh at the entry's idea that the Peter Jackson has become such a big name director that he can make self-indicate decisions like the making a movie twice as long as source material. I don't think anyone is the word bought a ticket to like making a movie twice as long as source material. I don't think anyone bought a ticket to a Lord of the Ring because it was their next project by the director of the Hama Creatures. They went because of the story a J.R.R. Tolkien story, not he's the not give a credit where it's the due. If Jackson had the muffed it then it would not have enjoyed the success that it did, but the Peter Jackson name did not open the movie, so to believe that he now has the stroke to make a 3-hour monkey movie that he's such a major name that the people will to spend $40 just to get to the production daily for he is the next movie is utterly ridiculous to me and a complete alter science of the herbs of the highest degree. This is the James Cameron type. The exusum post Titanic, and Asla was a big name before Titanic. If they took 30 to 60 minutes out of this movie, then I did probably be raving about it being the action blockbuster of 2005. As it is, I will have to simply say that it is full of the spectacular moments that try blow me away, but I don't think I will ever watch it again. All thought a grower of the near-ending stream of the remake movie. The last version of the King Kong is the peak in every way and will make for a fun medals. The's the third telling of the King Kong legend. Is a one-part B's adventure, one-part sleepy period romance with some Jack Black a hero, and keep the story alive at a touch of the Adrien Brody who show up and he walks after an evil Queen Naomi versus Santa, then they wash, then they play second to, and the oversized Gloria Wu is the best actor of them all, and the strikes was the incredible performance in Thea Gloria in the Lord of the Things trilogy outdoors. Himself as the motion capture artist for the King Kong, his body love convinces the king of the jungle sees everything we need to hire to understand the many mood of the Konga for a glimpse of the strike in his Thea human from his assumed the role of Thea ship Jeff. Overall, I can get over now the complete Kong versions of the New York City in the 1930s as the King Kong is definitely one to see in theater, so when the biggest screen you can find it causes the movie runs along, but you won't want to eat anything to grease you as you may lose the attempts. The midstream as the simulation for Thea helpless heroes goes from the bed to a worse while the getting lost on Thea Skull Iceland. The grey and fight scenes. I as the vicious and the Crimea as the prosthetic side can be. I am still curious why Kong keep getting reminded. My theory is that it tap onto I am still curious why Kong keep getting reminded, and my theory is that it deep into a timeless story that everyone can relate to, because let's face it, deposit for certain schools so would say we all have a bite of the great tapes in us. Kong the quest is what we all want in life, able to get on, eat at 20 hungry and avoid the giants lizards that seems to get in the way of your equality times with a little woman worry shapings will be able routine at the home. And of course when you step great epic into the coastalling left few grabs and take them out for a night on all the Broadway, things are going to get a little crazy, and the app may end up doing some things like the singing and his the birds with their sweeties on frozen porn to Adrien Parke, or screaming at the top of his the lumps from the highest rooftop he can find, and at the end of it all the big guy really wants to do is the cat sunrise with the love of his life. And do they remember what it was like back in the countryside? The good old days, if it were not for those that anyone be plans. As enjoyable as the new King of Kong is, there the no surprise on the right. The sheer spectral may be the entertained by Yukon who where the movie is going before the first level bangs, hoping that the next Peter Jackson's epic is based on a new idea for movie magazines. This is the Purple King Kong 2005 review. King Kong 2005 8 out of the 10. Peter Jackson Kong is a longer Peters to the original movie that the surprising trend into that the rest of the crowd pleaser, a movie that the boatmen and their girls will like. The Titanic Kong has enough action to keep the boys of all ages and romancea completely, with the target ending to gate the ladies crying, and what a romancea Kong and the Naomi wars light up Krina with the most famous famous of the Dimension of Prose special appearing in Why You Might Be the Mumbling Stock Syndrome at Thea Beings, not to mention Whispers. Jackson turned down the rake Dulce physics on the Naomi AWS CGI fact the Why Kong flicking her around she would eat the film in a body cast. Even the romancia seems to win, even the cranking so truly in the end the rest of the cast I saw top NDA with Jack Blake playing an all the Oscars well-styled director so well it is the almost the fighting. Speaking of the fightings, many people wonder alone how the Jacksons would they handle either a cicade, the creatures by the today the standards of the Iceland native essay, especially considering the world it is tribute while the wizards was the dark focused subtext of the Lord film noted to worry the mock-tie embarrassing the stereotypes of the happy dancing black people in the Kong stage show putting of the embarrassing's the Hollywood episode to reset. Instead, the resigns of the Skull Iceland are some of the secrets people ever put on film, pushing of the PG-30 rating to limit the pathetic can be in the cannibals, mushing skulls going into the wood dress and the kidnapping white women. They invoke the much hyper story types of the true Iceland swag. Hell, they are the scarier than the hype. Possible Reichel and Stata aside, Kong is not the perfect the special effect or overtop, but when the people run with the dinosaurs the limit of the blue screen sh and the could we get a mitten on the wake rapes and movie so they are really getting choice and being a relatively new the phmological endpoints really don't fit an Erica Kong movie. Yes, I know that is not illogical, but the kind of seems modern also if I cracker head of cell phone. That the other problem is the length. This feels like the director cuts with an easy 30 minutes of the film that could and probably should end up on the cutting room floor. We spent so much time in the various Kong feed the Broadway theaters on the Might the Mystic Thesis for Yankee Doll's Daddy remade all that a sweet crack action carry the Icelanta and the target romance make King Kong a winner. King Kong 2005 review. Peter Jackson remark of the King Kong is the Ameris and the materialist entertainment no expense has been the spear of the shortcuts taking in the delivering the wow factor multiple times throughout the course of its the lighting quickly a 183 minutes running time. Don't let the discuss evil from the fist. There is the hardly dull moments as the character are thrown together and a steamers head to the mysterious school of Iceland. The film has been the sternos of three major moments, from the Depression's arrest state of the New York to batting all sport of the pestic creatures and to the climax with a battle atop the Empire State the building after the executing task of the completing Lord of the Ring trilogy. One would accept a Jackson to take on the smaller as breathers between the blockbuster thing gifted the storyteller. He jumps right back after the excusing task of the completing the Lord of the Rings trilogy. One would accept Jackson to take on a similar project as a breathroll between the blockbuster. Nord thinks a gifted the storyteller he James Ryder back into a VFX heavy adventure with a more emotional payoff than anything in this or winning fancy film. Jack Black is the cardinal or well like he egocentric filmmaker that the lies and the conic he's the cast of the actor writers and the crew to be to the mythical Skull Iceland with the international to make a great adventure picture. The New Yorkers are more than the surprise to the encounter. The cannibals, the dinosaurs and the legendary King Kong. Naomi W.S. play the struggling actress Ann Darrow, who has been the plug from a Lawrence very well act to hit in a Dynamis features film. Spanky screenwriter Jack the Driscolls is also along for the rides, having been bombs by the Dynamo to accompany the production crew to the exotic locations, who has been plugged from Rent the valuable act to headline as a Dynam feature film. Spanky screenwriter Jack the Recalls is also along for the ride, having been bomb pleased by the Dynam to the accompany production crew to the exhaust collections. It's love at the first encounter between the massive pites and a human female. The relationship has been fleshed out in the most realistic ways, the possibly groundbreaking visual effect accomplishing the feat of the King Konga personally in the valuable and last really Empire State the sequence in the marvelous findable that should have the audience creaking on way out of the theaters for all acolytes that the war happened on. Peter Jackson following the completion of the Ring film trilogy. I find King Kong cream in his the filmography theory is a which splendor the primates visuals out of the frame of his /I photograph pictures for all the acolytes that were the happened on the Peter Jackson following the complication of his Rings film the trilogy. I find a King Kong the gum in his the filmography there is a visual splendor that the premise the royal every frame of his the lot is the photography picture in the years since it the internally releasey King Kong has been the forgotten. That is the shame. This excellent film should be the right discover by younger audience and will hopefully be recognized for the masterpiece that it is. Director Peter Jackson starting Wars Jack Bleak and Adrien Brody. King Kong Review 2005. Peter Jackson King Kong is one of the most lavish and the most emotional genius blockbuster of its era. A film that takes the 1933 original a central relationship between the woman and a joint app and the develop it with all serious and the source material plus original might not have suggest where the possible Jackson 2005 film is not without is executed in theaters the runtime content sequence of the considerable indices in it extends school Iceland action passenger test the audience patient in way that a more the explained it would have the void but it's the certain relationship is the most emotionally affecting human monster dynamic is the sequence of the constremble included in its the extent skull Iceland actions the passenger tells the audience patience in a way that a more disciplined it would have the void but it's the central relationship it's the most emotionally affecting human monster dynamic is the general history and it's the final act as one of the popular narrative conclusions at a glance directed Peter Jackson the runtime 18,070 means starting. The Naomi Awards Jack Black and Adrien Brody released 2005 greatest rating 4 out of 5 star the lavish emotionally a general epic center relationship isa the genre most if ratings audit most abusion blockbuster and the definitive modern treatment of the Kong Madame plot. In 1933 New York. The dispute filmmaker KRL Dynams the precious actor Ann Darrow and the playwright Jack the scroll to join his expanding to the uncredited skull Iceland where he hopes to film the somethings the extraordinary where he finds a world of the pistic captures dominated by the Kong clear of the extraordinary intelligence and the extraordinary Lonsa would take Anna as his the captive and they develop a relationship with her the genuine emotion, the complex. The screenplay by the Fen Blushfield boys and the Jackson handle the original the narrative with a finding in a depth that gives the familiar story dramatic reaches that the 1933 film Moria the economic treatment could not achieve, and the decision to set the film in the disruptions era 1930s give us the human characters a social contact that it makes there the motivations more the credibles and more the sympathetic the characters no mess and drawn is the film a most the important human achievement a portrayal of the genius and intelligence a genius coverage in the genius emotional complexity that transformed the original emo passes he went into a fully realistic photography move the relationship with the Kong is built on the mutually recognized rather than the simply a captive. Her performance in the scene as with the Kong delight against emotion to capture suit rather than a finish the character is one of the decide most the technical demanding and most emotionally the convincing in visual acting achievement. Any Shaw Kong is the film and most extraordinary in visual elements. Emotion capture performance of such the physical performance and such emotional rank that the characters achieve a dynamic presence that the original stop action animation could not have provided. Jack play crawls. Taking Kong presents Carl Denham as one of the most dramatically complex human antagonists in any version of the story, rather than portraying him as a simple, greedy showman who exploits Kong purely for profit. The film depicts him as an ambitious filmmaker whose dreams and obsession gradually lead him to make morally questionable decisions. Director Peter Jackson envisioned the film as an epic romantic adventure, drawing inspiration from classic Hollywood adventure films and creature features. His goal was to give the story a level of emotional depth and richness that the original film, limited by its era and runtime, could not fully explore. The Skull Island sequences are among the film's greatest strengths. Visually breathtaking and filled with unforgettable moments. They balance awe-inspiring scenes, especially Kong's first full appearance here, with thrilling action and intense suspense. This combination creates the dramatic authenticity that defines the adventure. The New York sequences are equally important because they provide the emotional foundation of the story. By placing Kong in a human setting, the film gives greater meaning to his relationship with Ann Darrow, making Kong's tragic fate far more heartbreaking than in previous adaptations. One of the film's central themes is the relationship between beauty and destruction. It explores the consequences of removing something extraordinary from its natural environment and turning it into a commercial spectacle. Denham's exploitation of Kong serves as the clearest expression of this idea. While the parallels between Kong's captivity and the entertainment industry's pursuit of profit give the story an additional layer of social commentary that the original film's more straightforward adventure narrative largely overlooked. The relationship between Ann Darrow and Kong is the emotional heart of the film. It demonstrates that genuine compassion and connection can exist despite overwhelming differences in species, size, and circumstance. This bond transforms the story from a simple monster adventure into a deeply moving tragedy. Naomi Watts and Andy Serkis deliver the film's most important performances. Their remarkable chemistry, despite Serkis portraying Kong through motion capture, is the primary reason the film succeeds as an emotional experience rather than merely a technical achievement. Adrien Brody's Jack Driscoll is given more depth than in earlier versions. Although his role as Ann's romantic interest remains somewhat underdeveloped, even so, the expanded human relationships help create a stronger emotional foundation for the story. Technically, King Kong is among Peter Jackson's most ambitious achievements outside the Lord of the Rings trilogy. The Skull Island sequences showcase extraordinary visual imagination and physical realism, bringing prehistoric creatures to life with a level of credibility and danger that earlier stop-motion animation could never fully achieve. Jackson's greatest directorial accomplishment is his handling of the relationship between Ann and Kong. He transforms the groundbreaking motion capture performance into something genuinely emotional, ensuring that the film's technological innovations always serve the story instead of overshadowing it. James Newton Howard's musical score further enhances the emotional impact of the film. His sweeping, heartfelt compositions give the relationship between Ann and Kong a powerful musical identity, reinforcing both the romance and the tragedy without becoming overly sentimental. Who should watch it? King Kong is highly recommended for anyone who wants to experience the Kong myth with greater emotional depth and cinematic scale. It is also an excellent choice for viewers interested in seeing how blockbuster filmmaking can use groundbreaking visual effects not simply to create spectacle, but to tell a deeply human and emotionally resonant story. King Kong, 2005. Is a film of remarkable ambition and significant achievement. At its heart is one of cinema's most emotionally compelling human-monster relationships, transforming a classic adventure story into a deeply moving and visually spectacular epic. Kong himself is portrayed with extraordinary emotion, making the film's heartbreaking final act one of modern blockbuster cinema's greatest tragedies. Naomi Watts delivers the film's most memorable performance, bringing warmth, compassion, and humanity to the role of Ann Darrow. Director Peter Jackson expands Skull Island with breathtaking visual imagination, creating a rich and immersive world that the original 1933 film could only hint at. Complementing the visuals is James Newton Howard's magnificent musical score, which gives Kong and Ann's relationship genuine emotional depth and reinforces the film's tragic conclusion. Although its 3-hour running time occasionally feels excessive, the film's emotional ambition, technical excellence, and unforgettable set pieces make King Kong one of the finest modern remakes. To celebrate the film's anniversary, King Kong, 2005, received an updated 4K Blu-ray release, giving fans the opportunity to experience Jackson's epic in the highest possible quality. The remastered edition features outstanding picture and sound, making it one of the definitive home video releases of the film. Around the same period, King Kong, 1976, also received renewed attention with a planned 4K Blu-ray Steelbook edition from Paramount Home Media Distribution, starring Jeff Bridges, Charles Grodin, Jessica Lange, John Randolph, and Renee Tilda. Copyright Aubergianos. The release was scheduled to arrive in April, offering collectors another classic version of the legendary story. Following the enormous success of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Peter Jackson had earned Universal Pictures complete confidence as one of Hollywood's most successful directors. He chose to remake his lifelong favorite film, King Kong, more than 70 years after the original captivated audiences around the world. Released in 2005, Jackson's remake performed well at the global box office, earning more than double its production budget worldwide. However, despite its financial success, the film received mixed reactions from some viewers. While many praised its emotional storytelling and visual effects, others felt the lengthy running time and pacing prevented it from reaching its full potential. Years later, after multiple DVD and Blu-ray releases, the film returned in a comprehensive Ultimate Edition Blu-ray package designed to provide fans with a definitive home video experience. The production history of Jackson's King Kong is almost as fascinating as the film itself. After directing The Frighteners for Universal Pictures in 1996, Jackson was invited to develop another project for the studio. Although he declined the opportunity to remake Creature from the Black Lagoon, he expressed great interest in remaking King Kong. Universal initially moved forward with the project, commissioning a screenplay and beginning early pre-production. However, with several major monster films including Godzilla, Mighty Joe Young, and a planned remake of The Mummy directed by Steven Somerset in development at competing studios, Universal became concerned about market saturation and temporarily cancelled the project. The overwhelming success of the Lord of the Rings trilogy completely changed the situation. Confident in Jackson's vision, Universal revived King Kong and placed him back in the director's chair, ultimately leading to the ambitious 2005 remake. While King Kong is not a flawless film, it remains an impressive achievement with much to admire. Kong himself is an extraordinary CGI creation whose expressive performance remains among the finest visual effects accomplishments of its era. Some of the supporting visual effects have aged less gracefully, and several human storylines receive more screen time than necessary, occasionally slowing the film's momentum. Even so, the film offers outstanding performances, thrilling action sequences, and genuine emotional weight. It may not deliver non-stop popcorn entertainment in the style of Kong, Skull Island, but it provides a richer emotional experience while paying heartfelt tribute to the original classic. The Blu-ray presentation is identical to the previous high-definition release but is packaged with additional bonus material to create a more complete collector's edition. Visually, the transfer remains outstanding, preserving natural film grain while delivering exceptional detail throughout. Colors are vibrant yet realistic, black levels are deep, skin tones appear accurate, and shadow detail is consistently impressive. Contrast is well balanced, and there are no noticeable signs of digital enhancement, compression artifacts, or print damage. Audio quality is equally impressive. The disc includes English DGS HD Master Audio 5.1, along with Spanish and French surround sound options. The English track is exceptionally dynamic, featuring aggressive surround activity, powerful bass, crystal clear dialogue, and an excellent presentation of James Newton Howard's sweeping musical score. It is a reference-quality audio experience that showcases the film's epic scale. Subtitle options are available in English, Spanish, and French for viewers who require them. The special features package is extensive, carrying over nearly every bonus feature from previous DVD and Blu-ray editions, including the comprehensive production diaries that documented the making of the film. One notable omission remains the original online production diary featuring composer James Newton Howard before later revisions, although dedicated fans can still locate this material through archival sources. Overall, The Ultimate Edition remains one of the most complete home video releases of King Kong, with outstanding audiovisual quality, an impressive collection of bonus features, and one of the finest modern adventure epics ever produced. It is an essential release for fans of Peter Jackson's film and collectors alike, although this edition can still be found through other sources if you're interested. It doesn't include any new bonus material, however, because the set contains such a large collection of content. It's worth taking a closer look at everything that's included. The first disc features the main presentation of the film, with the option to watch either the theatrical cut or the extended edition. This disc is essentially identical to the original Blu-ray release, and all of the previously included special features remain intact. Among the extras is an audio commentary available exclusively on the extended edition, featuring director Peter Jackson and co-writer/producer Philip Boyens. The disc also includes a picture-in-picture mode that provides an expanded version of many of the interviews and behind-the-scenes segments found elsewhere in the set. In addition, viewers can access the art gallery, which plays alongside the main feature, as well as the standard Universal Media Live features and a user guide. The second disc is also a duplicate of the original DVD release. It contains the film presented in English 5.1 Dolby Digital Surround, along with subtitle options in English SDH, French, and Spanish. Bonus content includes a short promotional feature filmed by the King Kong crew, featuring a brief making-of segment, as well as a commercial promoting New York tourism titled Wish You Were Here. The third Blu-ray disc contains the largest collection of bonus features, most of which are presented in standard definition. Subtitle options are available in English SDH, French, and German. One of the highlights is Peter Jackson's original 2006 introduction, first included with the extended edition DVD release. Also featured is the extensive 8-part documentary, The Making of King Kong, which explores every stage of the production. The documentary covers pre-production, including the return of King Kong Parts 1 and 2, the filming process, the journey to Skull Island, recreating New York, filming in New Zealand, and the creation of Kong through performance capture, animation, and visual effects. Also included are the complete production diaries, organized by date and filming location, each introduced by Peter Jackson. These behind-the-scenes videos provide an in-depth look at virtually every stage of production, including set construction, location scouting, camera work, motion capture, miniature effects, Skull Island sequences, creature design, Kong's performance, New York sets, and visual effects production. Additional bonus material includes A-Sense Peter Jackson's introductions and behind-the-scenes updates, A-Sense Skull Island previews and production galleries, A-Sense clapperboard footage and location tours, A-Sense international press junket coverage, A-Sense art department featurettes, A-Sense previously unreleased production diary entries, A-Sense hidden Easter egg content, A-Sense camera journeys through the film's sets, A-Sense creating New York, A-Sense New Zealand, a day at the zoo, A-Sense concept art galleries, A-Sense holiday and New Year messages from Peter Jackson, A-Sense filming in New York City, A-Sense vintage vehicle showcases, A-Sense New York set dressing and street lighting featurettes, A-Sense the transformation of Times Square into its 1930s appearance, A-Sense driving and location featurettes, A-Sense a day in the life of Peter Jackson, A-Sense additional featurettes covering Skull Island environments, creature effects, snow scenes, and the creation of Kong's hands. Overall, while this release doesn't introduce any brand new bonus content, it remains one of the most comprehensive collections available for King Kong, with hours of documentaries, production diaries, audio commentaries, galleries, and behind-the-scenes material. It offers an outstanding look at how Peter Jackson and his team brought the film to life.